All right, let's get started. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. For today's tips and tricks webinar, we're going to be showing calculating and labeling areas and volumes on your plans with Civil 3D. Before we get started, I have a couple of updates. Because this is a public presentation, we will have all mics muted. We do encourage you to ask questions, and we have allocated time at the end for Q&A. If you look at your go-to control panel, you will see a question box and a chat box. Enter any questions you may have during the presentation in either box, and we will answer them at the end. We are ZenTek Consultants, a technology consulting firm, providing innovative technology solutions to the Canadian CAD/BIM construction marketplaces. Our focus is to improve efficiencies, which in turn leads to increased productivity. I'm Steve Fahey, based in Halifax. I manage our Canadian operations. I invite you to visit our website to learn more about our company and our offerings. Also, don't forget to stay up to date by following ZenTek Consultants CA on LinkedIn. We offer a wide range of online Civil 3D training classes, live courses, private courses, custom courses, and on-demand courses. Please visit our website or contact me directly to learn more. I am pleased to have Cindy Davenport joining me today. Cindy has in excess of 30 years experience implementing and supporting technology in the CAD/BIM construction fields. She has co-authored 3 books on mastering Civil 3D and has been an instructor at Autodesk University. We're very happy to have Cindy and her technical expertise on her team. At this time, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Cindy.
Okie dokie. Show my screen.
You should see this. You should have control of the screen shortly.
I am seeing the control, so I'm trying to make the correct choice. Bear with me for a second. There we go. I found it. Right, can you see my screen with my Civil 3D on it?
I can. You're good to go.
Great. All right. So today's presentation, we're talking about labels and areas and things like that. And when we think about labels for areas in Civil 3D, we think about parcels. And it's not always so good to turn line work into parcels just to get areas out of it. And we do have inquiry commands that we can get areas from, but it'd be so nice if you can just grab a tool, click a button, and select an item, and then just get your label and get that feedback and just have the annotation. Incidentally, somebody came up with a bright idea a while back. It was a great idea, but to use drainage areas as parcels. Well, that's great. It works fine and all, but when you take your pipes and your drawing into storm and sanitary sewer analysis and backdrop it in there, you can't see those drainage areas, so it doesn't do you any good as far as visually goes inside SSA. But anyway, line work definitely goes over there. The types of areas that we want to label would be like maybe building areas, pavement areas, irregularly shaped areas, that's really hard to get an area from. Would be good to label. This here is just a polyline here. And so there's a way in Civil 3D to take and create a Civil 3D label that does areas and even volumes for that matter. And so not many people realize that you can do it with a general purpose label or a general label here. And so you see I'm on my settings tab here under my drawing. My drawing is actually called labels, so don't let that confuse you. But underneath general, we have our label styles here. And believe it or not, the one or actually 2 labels or 2 types of labels in here that you can create an area label from would be line and curve. All right, so there's actually, if you do have a closed polyline, then you can get the label to give you area. So let's look and see how that is done. If you, let's say we're going to create a line label here. Okay, so we'll hit new. And then we can just give it a name. We'll just say area. All right, so we go over to general, and of course we do the usual. If you haven't done label styles, any label you create, you're going to be getting this dialog box called Label Style Composer, and the tabs are all the same. So if you've done one label, you should be able to do other labels in Civil 3D. So notice here on the general tab, we choose things like our text style and our layer. And let's say we're going to do a building layer, so let's pick an appropriate a building label. So we're going to do the appropriate layer called C building here. Maybe that should have been C building text, but whatever. On this tab here, you can also tell it how you want your label oriented. Now, by default, it wants to orient with the object. And as you see here, that's what it says. It says object. You can see in the preview here, it's oriented with this line object here. The choices are view and world coordinate system. So the world coordinate system, that's our default coordinate system. And if you set your label to world coordinate system, your label is going to stay plan readable according to the world coordinate system, even if you change your UCS. Now, or change your view actually. Now we can say we want the label to be oriented with the view, and that way, if we set up a viewport on our layout tab and we rotate that view, then our label will stay plan readable if we configure it like so. Now, if we come down to plan readability, there's a setting in here called readability bias, and that is how far do you rotate your viewport in degrees until your label flips 180 degrees. And by default, AutoCAD sets this to 110, which I think is really strange, because when you rotate it just past 90 degrees, the label is still upside down, and it still looks upside down in your view. So I always set this to 90, and that seems to do the trick. Now the layout tab is where you pull your label together, and by default, when you create a line label like this, it's going to come up with all these default components. Okay, components are pieces of your label basically, and you can have several different pieces of your label, and these are the component types that you can configure here. Hit the drop down here, you can have a text component type. You can pull lines into your label and make some really fancy labels. You can pull blocks in also, direction arrows for line labels, and then reference text. And what reference text does is it will pull information from other objects, right? So if you haven't done that before, you can create labels like alignment labels to label station offset labels. And you can also put the elevation in there and have the reference text refer to a surface. So anyway, that's for another type of webinar. For this type of label, what you want to do is start from scratch. You want to delete all the existing components in there. So what we're going to do is set this red X to delete the distance component, then the bearing component, and then the direction area component. So we're going to start from scratch and see how the preview updates as you delete all those components out. Now the only thing you can't delete out is the table tag, right? Because line and curve labels want to partner up with tables. So you can't delete that out. So we're just going to create a brand new textual component, see text. So click on that. Here's our new text component. We can call this area. Of course, that's the name of our text component. Once we do that, you see it changes its name up here. All right, this is to be used in label mode, not tag mode. So make sure that that shows up there. Anchoring it to what? The feature, that's fine. The feature is the thing that we're labeling. And then label location, wherever we pick basically. The contents, that's where the magic is. We want to jump into the contents by hitting this button here, the ellipsis button. When we click on that, it opens up the text component editor. All right, and there's some text over here. It's kind of hard to see on my screen. I can't see a preview, of course, what you see, but on my screen, it's kind of hard to see. It's the text is like dark gray on black. You want to just backspace through that. It puts a set of dummy text in there called label text. So just backspace through all of that and come and grab a property. And the property you want to look for is the general overall area. All right. So you grab that and then you come and you set your units. All right. So notice we got square foot here. We can choose a bunch of different units here. We have acres and square kilometers and everything that might make you happy with when you label areas. So I'll just select square feet here. All right, You can configure your precision, your rounding, and all of this stuff. Now, when you're done configuring, here, what you want to do is you want to hit this button here. This is called the Apply Edits button. If you don't hit this button here, everything you configured on this side will not go to this side. So see, you hit Apply Edits, and then see we've got all this code in here that represents everything we configured on this side. I sometimes refer to this as the Put It There button, because if you don't hit that button, it will not put all of this over here. So anyway, once you do that, you can come over here and towards the tail end of your text, you can type in here and maybe type your units in. I'm typing SFN for square feet. Okay, you can type any prefix in like area equals, area colon, whatever it is that you want in your label, and then you can hit OK. So once that's in there, you can see how it's formatted here. Okay, so also you would want to maybe go over to your drag state and configure that. And under the drag state, that's what happens. You know, this configuration here determines what happens when you pick up your label and you move it over. Maybe it's overlapping something that you don't want overlapped. So anyway, do you want to see a leader? So if you don't want to see a leader for your area label, you can set this defaults. And then you will not see a leader or a leader line or landing or any part of a leader. Okay, you come down to drag state. We can keep it on stack text. We can configure a border if we wanted to. The types of borders that we can configure would be rectangular, rounded rectangular. And it gives you a preview if you select any of these items. Not here, of course. It would be on the layout tab. You could get a preview because you can configure a border there. So if you set this to true, you can see that's rectangular. This is rounded rectangular, and that's circular. Okay, I'll set this into false here. And the drag state, you'll see the border when you pick up the text and pull it away. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to configure a border here. I'm just going to say okay. Let's go ahead and apply this label here. I'm going to come up to the Annotate tab. The cursor is playing games with me. Just a minute. There we go. Whoa, what happened there? There we go. That was weird. My drawing window just like rotated. Okay, so I'm going to come up to the Annotate tab and I'm going to go to the Add Labels button here. There's a top part and a bottom part of the button. I'm going to click on the top part. That's going to bring up the Add Labels dialog box here. The feature is going to be a line or line and curve actually. Single segment is just fine. I played around with this before. I'm going to go up here and select this one area. This is the one that I just created. And notice it's a line label. That means if there is a curve in this polyline here, I do not want to select that curve or else it'll put this label on there. Okay, I want to select a line segment that's a part of this closed area. So I'm going to hit add and I'll grab this line segment here. And so there is the area. Okay, and now, you know, I could take that and of course it's on the line. You know, I could slide it along the line using this diamond grip. Or else I could just pick it up with the square grip and then put it in the middle of things. And so there that is. Hit escape, and there is the label. Now, the cool thing about this is that this label will change as you change the shape of your area. So you see that? I can really do a better job by clicking and using the grips. So see, it updates with the area. So if you do need to change the area, your label will update by itself, which is really nice. All right, so the title of this little webinar implies that doesn't imply, it says that we're going to cover creating labels for volumes too. So you could do that. You could create a label for volumes. And if you do that, you're going to want to, in the area that you're creating this label in, which is line for me today, you want to come down to the expressions and you want to create an expression because from line work, it cannot calculate volume. It needs a little bit of help. So you can come down to expressions and then you can hit new, open up the expression dialog box. And the way you need to do this is you need to set up an expression that does the math for you. So what it can do is it can take the area. So if you hit this little button here, this will take you to the properties of this label type. You can grab the area here, and then you can multiply it by whatever the depth is. So if you're like stripping topsoil, or if you're calculating concrete volumes, if you had a certain slab depth or pavement section depth, you can put that in here and type it in. So if let's say it's let's say this is or a building pad, and the depth for the underneath the foundation is going to be 1.5 feet here. Okay, I'll just go ahead and give this a name, building volume. Okay, so this would be for excavation, I guess. And so, you just do the math in here. Okay, so the general overall area, that's going to be calculated in square feet. You got to realize that it's not going to be in square yards, it's going to be in square feet, and then it's going to multiply it by the actual depth in feet. All right, and then we say, okay, what we can do is we can go into our label that we just created, just edit that label, and then we can go in on the layout tab, go down to where it says contents. Whoops. First of all, we want to find the correct component. So that would be the area component, not the table tag. And you go to contents. And then underneath the area here, I can pull in the volume. And if you hit the drop down here, you can see that at the top is my expression. I mean, there are a few expressions in here. Whenever you create an expression, it shows up at the top of your the list of properties for the item that you're labeling. So there's building volume. I can configure the precision here. So whatever you need it to be, and then just hit the put it there button. And then maybe over here, you're going to add cubic yard, so it's clear. Oh, notice there are no units available here as there are for your as there is for your area, because this is coming from the expressions dialog. Let's hit OK here, and then and you see the preview here, and then we hit OK here. Okay, now you see the label just updated. Now it's giving me the cubic yards. No, it's not. That should have been cubic feet. I put in the wrong thing. Hold on. We're going to come in here, and then let's fix it so it's correct. I put in cubic yards. It should have been cubic feet. So there it is. All right. And so that's better. Just cubic feet. So that's how you would be labeling volumes too. And again, you have to create an expression. And if you need to edit your expression, you can just come down here and you can hit edit expression and open it up. Now, I do want to show you something here. Okay, I forgot to show you this. Format result as, and you have all of these options down here. Now I can choose volume here to format it as a volume and hit OK. Now if we go and we edit this label now, and you choose the correct component, and you jump into the contents of the label. Okay, and notice now we have units. So now we can choose whether this is going to be cubic yards or cubic feet. All right, because we configured units to that. All right, so you remember that's very important that you configure the correct units. So if I want this in cubic feet, I could do that. And notice how the content's updated. And I can change this to, oh, that's already cubic feet. Let's change that. Cubic yards, right? We're going to change it to cubic yards. And let's hit that and update that and change this to cubic yards. And now let's see the label update. And we say OK. And see how it updated. Okay, so that's how you use general line labels. You can do the same thing with the curve labels, and also integrate some expressions into your labels in order to get, what you need, the data that you need. So that is it. Are there any questions?
I do have one question for you. It's can you create tables based on areas and volumes using general segment labels?
Well, let me show you something here. If you go underneath these label styles here, or even just the general area, you're not going to see table styles as you would for like a parcel, see? But you will find that if you come into, see, I'm on the annotate tab, you come into this panel here and hit the add tables button at the very bottom, we have the ability to add lines and curves. So if we hit the add line tables, you're going to be able to create a table based on lines and curves. But however, let's say we're going to create a new table style. Okay, now if you come over and let's say that I wanted to change this guy to area. So I'm just changing the header to area so it makes sense. Then I want to pull in the area properties into the table. I double click in the area where you pull the properties into, hit the properties, hit the drop down, you're not going to see area here. Neither will you see the expression. So unfortunately, you cannot create a table that displays your areas for lines or curves when they're creating closed objects. But however, I just created that, I just created this table style. This table style is actually a parcel table style. So if you're curious where this gets created, then it gets created under parcel table styles. Lines, basically. So that's where it would be created. But no, you cannot put areas or volumes into those tables. Any other questions?
No, that's it for today. So I'm just gonna grab the screen. I'd like to thank you very much, Cindy, for that great overview. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Our contact information is on screen. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about the training and the services we offer, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.